Hey guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, I'm gonna talk about how to work with OC command line. In the previous video, we saw how we do this with this. I'm gonna close this. We don't need this no more. So this is basically your. I'm gonna separate it as two different tabs so that it doesn't confuse me. So you're gonna have this OpenShift GitHub page where you can copy paste the command from, and you have this OC, the console over here. So pretty much what you have to do right now is to export the configuration. So to do that, you need to run the export command. Export kube c. Okay, I'm gonna copy paste because I make a typo and then it's gonna delay a lot. So I'm just gonna redo this path. So it's gonna be root. It's gonna be my home directory, and then dot kube. No, not kube. OpenShift GCP, OCP, GCP, auth, and then kube config. Okay, so it's not showing the files under, so I think like we will do this way. OpenShift, sorry, kube. Okay, so we can see this is the same configuration file which you are supposed to have. So this is the same configuration file. Okay, so what I'll do, it doesn't look to be the same one. So I'll just do this. OpenShift OCP GCP auth and then kube config. So this looks like a proper file, okay, which is needed for our server to run. So let's just go with this two commands over here. So let me copy till here and then equal to, and then finally. Okay, so now I'm exporting the kube configuration into kube config variable. And when I run OC get nodes, I should be getting the nodes of the service which is running in this cluster. So this is how you can work with multiple clusters. Okay, so if you have multiple clusters, you're gonna have multiple kube config files. Like for example, I will be inside this OpenShift OCP GCP. I will create a folder here called venky OCP, which talks about that cluster. If I have a development cluster, I will create another folder here, dev cluster, and then inside that dev cluster I will be like specifying, I will be creating a new cluster, and that's gonna have an different OCP completely there installed. So once I have that OCP completely installed on that cluster, I'll be able to log into that cluster via OC by exporting the kube config to point it towards that kube configuration file, because that kube configuration file will have the URL of the API which connects to that cluster, like a dev cluster, and this one has the URL of this particular API. So you can see that the API is the one which is actually telling you to connect to this cluster. If the API says that it is dev.gcp, then it's going to connect to the dev cluster. So basically, the authentication method is all given over here. So this is basically a certificate authority data, which certifies your cluster, and it uses the authentication method. So here, it uses a different username than what you used on the console, which is kube admin. Here, it uses this username called admin. So, and then the authentication is not password. It's basically a client certificate data where it exchanges this client data certificate with the server data certificate, and then basically authenticates through that way. But don't try to use this, because by the time this video gets uploaded, I will be like deleting this cluster hundreds of times. So, which means that I will have new cluster with new certificates. So it doesn't matter. Now, one of the important commands for you to execute, firstly to start with, is OC get nodes. Now, this is so important because OC get nodes gives you the nodes which you have running on your system. So it doesn't matter if it's a master node or the worker node. It basically gives you that that node details over here. Now, as you can see, this is a node which is created autonomously by the script of OpenShift, which has created this venky-wsph-pzh. So this is basically a random name to define about your cluster, and then this is the one which is going to be unique. It's going to say master 0. Now this means that you can have multiple masters. Okay, so we have configured only one, but if you go for a production scenario or a real training scenarios, we would normally configure 3 master. Now I'll tell you the reason why we do that. It's basically to maintain the consistency of data, but I'll explain you that a little later in detail, but just overview we are looking at right now. And then I'll also tell you what is master plane. I think we did explain a little bit about architecture in the master and worker node. So you understand the master node has the control plane, and basically it controls all the operations which is done on the worker node. Though your content will be actually installed on the worker node, but the whole person of scheduling these, monitoring these, will all be done by the master node. So it's always recommended to have 3 master nodes just for the consistency of data, and a failure and a rollback capability. When you have multiple master nodes, especially more than 3. So more than 3 is the golden word for master node. So you can see that it also gives you detail like which region it has hosted, and also the availability zone as well. It says over here 1B. So here it also talks about the cluster name Venky OCP GCP, and then internal. So I'm sorry, OCP GCP Venky is basically a project name. So basically it tells you that information. And then in terms of worker node, it gives very little information, and then basically it says that the status for both is ready, and it's been 92 minutes and 71 minutes since it's been created. Well, so yeah, it's been quite some time since it has created, and the current rules are over here. So always use -o wide. This option is to give you a detailed information. So this option works on most of the commands. If you want to know more detail about this, if you want to know more information about a specific command you're giving, -o wide is going to give you. So it's a global kind of option which is going to be attached to most of the commands which you're going to use. Okay, so do remember this. If you want to know more information, or the information which you see is not enough, you can always give this -o wide. So this will help you out to understand more in detail about a specific option. So here you can see some extra information like kernel version, the OS image, which it does used to install, and then some container runtime environment as well. So it is using Cryo as a container runtime environment. So now we've been using Docker and all those things. Those are some of the words we heard before. But Docker is not like it's more commercial than it is available to everyone to use. So Cryo, on the other hand, is like a freeware, like an open source tool. So Cryo is more dependent. I'm sorry, Cryo is more dependable than Docker it is. So always in a system like Kubernetes or OpenShift, they always work with Cryo rather than Docker. So you will hardly see Docker word specified anywhere in OpenShift or in Kubernetes. All right, so you also get this external internal IP, and it doesn't have external IP. It's all private, so there's no communication to the worldwide web. All right, pretty much this is what I want to show you towards this. So yeah, pretty much this is what we've been talking about. So this should be good enough for us to work with. Any questions on that? Please do leave it on the comment section so that I can address that there when I get the time for it. Well, anyways, thank you so much for this. So we just understood some of the basics of your OpenShift, like how to access the OpenShift command line, and how to execute one of those commands. We will talk in more detail about these commands later point of time, like we have so many commands to look at, and then I'll try to explain you one by one each of these commands, what it does and how you need to work with it. Thank you again for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.